Hi and welcome to my channel. Today I'm talking Mamiya RB67 and I am talking backs. Let's get into it. Up until the advent of the digital camera, like my Sony here, the only way you could really shoot multiple film stocks or black and white and colour at the same shoot was to have multiple camera bodies if you were a 35mm user, or if you're a medium format user, you'd use different film backs. Now, of course, some medium format cameras like my twin lens C330 Mamiya can't use backs. But part of the advantage, and in fact the vast majority of medium format SLR type cameras, single lens reflex, use film backs. Like this 120 back from my Mamiya RB67. And in fact, one of the major plus points for having one is being able to use different film backs. Now, one weakness that these film backs have is that there are a lot of places for light to get in. Aside from the obvious place that light gets in, which is where it should do with the dark slide removed, these backs have multiple light seals. And if I open this back here and lift out the film carrier, I'll put up some images of these seals. But the reason why that was quite tight to come apart is because I've replaced all the seals in this, and this is what I'm going to show you how I did today. This is something I would do as a matter of course on any new film back for medium format. Seals are in many ways disposable. They have a shelf life. They're foam and the adhesive on the back breaks down and the foam turns into goo, and in general they don't last more than a few years. So this is just such a common job when you have a medium format interchangeable back camera that I thought I might as well go through it. Well, here's an indication of exactly how horrible the seals were as the back arrived with me. I'll be honest and say I didn't pay a great deal of money for the back. It was kind of a bargain basement one for £75 that I picked up online, which is around half of the price that one would probably expect to pay. And of course, for that money, I fully expected the seals to be rubbish, and I wasn't disappointed. Right, here's the kit that I tend to use when I'm doing this. First of all, you'll see there's a pack of seals, which it's very convenient that if you buy an RB67 seals kit, which includes the ones in the camera, they, at least the one I bought, came with enough back seals to do two backs. So when I got the camera, I did the back that came with it, and I still had a spare set. I'll put a link to the seals kit in the description. It seems that most of them are available from Japan now. In the past there was a company in France, but I can't seem to find them anymore, so it may be that they've disappeared. So other items to have ready when you're doing this job are a healthy supply of cotton buds, or Q-tips, I think they call them across the Atlantic, some cocktail sticks or toothpicks, again depending on what you want to call them, and some isopropyl alcohol, or I think it's known as rubbing alcohol in some areas. And that is your seal replacement kit, and that also is a kit you can use for doing seal replacements on 35mm camera film doors, just as a side thing there. The first job is to wet down the particular section of seal that you're going to work on with plenty of isopropyl alcohol on a cotton bud, just to start dissolving that adhesive. To be fair, the adhesive was pretty awful on this particular back, and it didn't take a great deal of dissolving to get into a state where it could be pretty much pulled off at will. Some of the old seal was quite cooperative and decided to come off in more or less one piece, but some of the bits that you see on my work table there more or less came off as a sort of messy black goo, which actually needed scraped. And the best thing to scrape that with are broken cocktail sticks. You can actually make the ends of them into almost like a little brush by whacking the wood with a hammer and just turning them into a kind of flattened scraper, which won't actually damage the metal of the back. A huge surprise for me here was that some of the seals in the slightly narrower recesses appeared to be replaced with ordinary string that had been marked up with a Sharpie. Not really the right way to do it, and that had to come out to be done the right way. Work your way methodically round the seals, and I find it very, very useful to take pictures with my phone as I'm doing it, so that I know where the seals have come out of and where I have to put seals back in. Some of these seals, like the one you can see me removing there on the film carrier itself, were really not stuck in at all. So how much good they were actually doing as a light seal is a moot point. The final thing to do is to thoroughly clean out all the slots that you've removed the seals from with a healthy amount of isopropyl alcohol, and try and get all that black goo out. Sometimes you can't get all of it out, but as much as you can, because that's going to stop the seals sticking well. When you're satisfied that you've cleared all the muck and rubbish out of the grooves, then I like to separate out the foam seals from their sheet that they come ready cut in, and offer them into place, like the one that's in the middle of the screen there now. That, as you can see, has got its backing paper on, but I'm just making sure where it goes and how it sits before I start to fix them in position. The secret here is very much to take your time, because once these seals are stuck down hard, they will really be stuck down very hard indeed, and you'll actually break them trying to remove them. So a tip that I have here that makes things a lot easier is actually to have a small container of water and a paintbrush available, because you can put water on the surface where you are going to put the seal and then float the seal on top of it, and it won't stick until you press it down really firmly, and you'll have some ability to reposition the seal. I also like to keep a sharp pair of nail scissors, you can see there in the background, handy, because sometimes the seals don't completely want to come away from their sheet, and you don't want to risk tearing them, taking them out, so sometimes you just need to do a little nip in order to separate them cleanly. The long seals, like the ones you can see here on the film door and the ones that are on the camera side of the film carrier, are actually the most difficult because they fit into quite narrow slots. I find the best technique is to put one end in and fix it with a little push from either a toothpick or a pair of tweezers just on the very end, and then keep a little tension on it as you pull the backing paper off and drop it into the slot at the same time. I don't remove all the backing paper at once from the long seals because that tends to make it very difficult. They'll stick to everything, they'll stick to your fingers, and they'll stick to the camera back in places that you don't want them to go. Leave the backing paper on until the last possible moment. And a healthy dose of water underneath them allows you a little bit of wiggle to get them into exactly the right place. Don't forget the 4 seals that are at the 4 corners of the film carrier. They're actually what the film carrier rests on inside the back, and they actually provide a sort of suspension for the whole film carrier. And if you don't have those, there won't be a tight fit for any of the other seals. After about an hour's work, there you have it. New seals fitted to both the film carrier and the back unit, and all assembled and ready to close up. If you've done your job right, you should feel a difference the moment you go to close the film door, because it will be a lot more difficult than it was when there were basically no seals, just a bunch of liquid gloop, and it will feel much more cushiony, and if indeed cushiony is a word, and much better to just snap the back closed. So here's the back, all done and ready to be loaded with film and taken out and tested. And it's particularly important to test it as soon as you possibly can, and not to use it on any jobs that are vital until you're sure it's light tight. I usually use a 400 ISO film first, because obviously it's more light sensitive, so you've got more chance of picking up light leaks if there are any, which hopefully, if you've done your job well, there shouldn't be. So here's my current lineup of RB67 kit. You have the body with the eye level prism finder. You have the 180mm short telephoto Secor. You have the standard 127mm Secor, and the latest addition to my lenses, the 50mm wide angle Secor, which I haven't actually had a chance to go out and test yet. Along with that, you'll see that there's an extension tube, a 45mm one, which I picked up for silly cheap, practically brand new, but for 20 quid. Now, with the addition of an extra back, I feel a little bit more confident in taking the old girl out for a day's shooting, to be versatile and be able to take a colour negative and a black and white negative, and possibly even some colour transparency. We shall see, because 6x7 colour transparencies are so impressive. Of course, because all this gear is RB, 3 lenses and a body and 2 backs weighs about the same as a medium-sized child. So it needs a decent photo backpack to carry it around in, and that's exactly what I intend to do when I take it out. A shoulder bag is not the way to go. I rate fixing the seals in an RB67 back as being about 3 on the difficult rating, when 5 would be the most difficult. It doesn't require special tools, it doesn't really require special skill, it just requires being methodical and not minding getting black goo all over you, and it's fairly persistent, that stuff, and it doesn't like coming off your fingers when it's been dissolved in alcohol either. So there's the back ready to go, and the RB67 ready to go out on a shoot. And if we have fine weather over the next few days, that's exactly what I'm going to be doing in order to test out the new 50mm wide angle lens, which I'm really looking forward to. One of the limiting factors for me with the RB has been the lack of having a wide angle lens for the last few months. And as you'll know if you watch this channel regularly, I'm very fond of my wide angle lenses. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, hit that like button. It really does the channel good. And as usual, I want to hear your comments if you're an RB67 user or another medium format, maybe a Hasselblad user or 645. Do let me know. I personally love the RB67, even though it is a massively heavy boat anchor. It's just a lovely quality piece of equipment. If you really enjoyed this channel, perhaps you might think about subscribing. I have a Patreon site, which you can find with a link in the description. And you can also buy me a coffee if you want to, because I get through a fair amount of coffee while I'm making these videos. So that's about all I have time for this time. So I'll just say, take care of yourselves and keep taking pictures.